FPL Game Week 36 transfer targets. We have 3 weeks left of the season and a double game week next week, but there are some single game week players who are consistently outperforming those with a double game week. So today we're going to go through all those teams with a double, who I think those are relevant, who you should be potentially picking, updates on injuries and everything like that. But we'll also be covering a few single game week players as well that I think you should consider for the run-in. What's up everyone, FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And I'm actually recording this intro on Manchester City again, having recorded it this afternoon, saying that it looks like Ederson might not feature again. Apparently with fan reports and sort of Manchester City accounts this evening, it's saying that we might see Ederson back as soon as Wolves at home, with him not having picked up a substantial injury. Now, we will have a press conference from Pep Guardiola on Friday, so we will get an update from him then. We will also get training photos between now and then, which might give us a better indication. Of course, if Ederson is out for the entire season, then someone like Ortega will become popular. Even if he's out for game week 37 and might be back for the final day of the season, Ortega will still be very popular. However, with these reports, it looks like Ortega will not be an option if Ederson does look like he's going to return a little bit sooner than originally anticipated, given he left the Manchester City game against Nottingham Forest with his arm in a sling. So at time of recording, I can't recommend buying any of the goalkeepers. If either of the goalkeepers look like they're going to play the final 4 weeks of the season, they are the best FPL goalkeeper in the game for the final 4 matches, 3 game weeks of the season. So keep an eye on the press comments on Friday. I'll cover what I can in my final decisions and my team selection videos over the next couple of days, but just a little bit of an update there. Now, you might want to use your Manchester City spots in goal, but there are plenty of other spots that you might want to use them as well. In defense, both Gvardiol and Walker look like great picks. Gvardiol has now got 3 goals in 5 games, having not scored in his previous 30 games for Manchester City. Now, do we think he's going to keep going at that rate? No, but if you do watch the games, his positioning is very, very good. He is very high up and definitely more attacking than Kyle Walker seems to be at the moment. Now, things can switch. Pep is a very tactical, team-based manager depending on who they're playing against, but at the moment you'd have to look at Gvardiol's positioning, his record and his form, and say he's probably the defender to buy at the moment. Now, into the attack, Foden missed out with illness, but we are expecting him back for Wolves at home next week. De Bruyne came in with good returns. Haaland was on the bench back from his injury. You'd probably expect all 3 of these to be back, starting pretty much every single game between now and the end of the season, and they are fantastic triple up if you have space for it. Now, Haaland for me is one of the best forwards. There's not actually loads of forwards outside of Haaland and Isak of Newcastle that are consistent at the moment. Foden is just cheaper than De Bruyne. So if you're going for De Bruyne, he's an addition to Phil Foden, and going up on the triple attack is something that very few people are doing. So if you're looking to chase between now and the end of the season, triple attack is fantastic and a great differential if you are able to do it. If you can't do it, Haaland, Foden, and then either Gvardiol or Ortega for me is the best triple up. But given that we think they'll likely have to win all of their remaining games between now and the end of the season, unless Arsenal slip up in one of their matches, feels like a triple up for Manchester City is almost essential. Wolves at home, West Ham at home, and a double of Fulham away, Spurs away. Just having a triple up feels like the biggest priority we have going into game week 36. Next up is Brighton, and a team we can spend very, very little time talking about. Brighton is on the beach, and Brighton as a team is on the beach. I've never seen a drop off in form for such a high quality side as we have seen for Brighton for quite a while now. I think I read they've won like 7 matches since the end of October, which is crazy. We know they're in Europe, but the drop off in form combined with their injuries, now Van Heck is the one that a lot of people went with as a cheap option. There's rumours that we might not be seeing him again this season. Again, let's wait for the press conference later this week before we decide fully what to do with him if you own him. But yeah, even João Pedro, even the attack, there's absolutely no options here. Just wanted to cover it because I knew if I didn't mention Brighton, people would say, what about Brighton assets? I'm sure none of you are really thinking about them, but yeah, Brighton assets are a complete no-go now. If you own them, maybe you could hold João Pedro for the season just based off the fixtures and the double he has, potentially Dunk, but they're probably sells. There's probably players that will easily outscore them even for hit between now and the end of the season as well. Next up is my team, Chelsea. 4 green fixtures between now and the end of the season. Brighton has been changed to a green fixture based off their recent form. Of course, they do play Spurs on Thursday evening, so if you're looking to make transfers, wait until that. There should be a Chelsea press conference both on Wednesday and then on Friday again if you're waiting on injury news to someone like Malo Gusto or even Sanchez, which could, impact Petrovic's minutes over the next few weeks. Looking in goal, first of all, I think Petrovic should probably start the remaining games between now and the end of the season. He is our best goalkeeper. The only thing that would mean he doesn't is if he just fancies giving Sanchez a game to be nice between now and the end of the season, given he was the number one at the start of the season. But Petrovic is our best keeper. Sanchez was pretty horrific for quite a few number of games before he did get injured and then dropped on his return. So if you're looking to buy a goalkeeper, I think Ortega is the best one. But if you can't go with him, I think Petrovic is next best. Now, into defence, at time of recording, Gusto apparently has not been back in Chelsea training yet, which means he is still a doubt for game week 36. And Reece James is continuing his time in full Chelsea training. Now, there is a lot of debate amongst Chelsea fans and amongst people on Twitter. Do Chelsea take a risk with Reece James between now and the end of the season? A lot of people are saying they hope they don't. And I probably hope we don't see Reece James start a game of football. Feels like too big a risk that we just don't need to take. But it is a risk to Gusto's minutes full stop, and we don't even know with Gusto being back or not. So Gusto is a non-buy. If you own him, you can still hold him, but don't go buying Gusto. If you do want a defender, there are 2 defenders I could potentially look at. Chilwell is also missing from training, which means Cucurella could start the remaining games this season. Now, Colwill could play left back. They could swap things around to play someone else at left back. But it looks like Cucurella will probably start 3 of the last 4 unless Chilwell makes a miraculous recovery. He did score the own goal against Aston Villa, but he did also get pretty far forward at times during that game as well. So if I had to punt on defenders, I'd probably go with Cucurella. Disasi might also get decent minutes, but the way we're defending, don't expect more than maybe 1 clean sheet between now and the end of the season anyway. Into midfield, of course, Cole Palmer is a lock. He's back in the team. Yes, he blanked, but there's not real much to discuss there. With the fixtures we've got, he feels an essential own. Noni Madueke, again, got a goal and an assist in that game against Aston Villa. He looks like a really nice differential. A lot of the differentials we have at the moment play in midfield, and we'll talk about a few of those across other teams as well. I really like Madueke. I think he'll start a minimum of 3 of the last 4, and because he's young, he could definitely start all of the last 4. He's very direct. He's something Chelsea are missing. I think his minutes will be really good. Really nice differential if you can fit him into your midfield. And then we move up front, Jackson. Now, he missed chances against Aston Villa. He continues to miss chances, continues to get chances, though. That's the only thing. Outside of Haaland and Isak in FPL at the moment, there's not loads of forwards that I really like. No one being consistent in terms of returns. No one with a double that I massively like. And no one, really putting their name in the hat to be the one to go with, which is why a lot of people like myself went with Jackson on wildcard. I still stand by, despite the missed chances, he should start the remaining 4 games, 3 at a minimum, and I think he is the best of a bad bunch for the 3rd forward spot. Now, if you don't have 7 million and you can't own him, he's far from essential, right? He will miss most of the chances he gets probably, and he said himself in a Sky Sports interview this week that he knows he should have been scoring more chances than he has done this season, but he will get chances. We have a double. The fixtures are nice between now and the end of the season. So if you're struggling for a 3rd forward, I still think Jackson is the next best thing. Moving on to Manchester United, and again, disappointing result at the weekend, 1-1 draw with Burnley. Some okay fixtures between now and the end of the season. 2 home fixtures in the double, but they are against Arsenal and against Newcastle, both of which will be very competitive games with all teams still looking to pick up some points between now and the end of the season. Don't expect many clean sheets. I'd be surprised if Manchester United keep more than 1 clean sheet between now and the end of the season. But Onana does make some decent saves when he's not punching players and giving away penalties. 5 million for him is okay, but Ortega and Petrovic are both probably above him at the moment. Diego Dallo is still attacking. He is still getting forward in defence. If you have that option, I don't hate it, but I don't expect massive clean sheets. A lot of us are just going to stick with the defenders we've got between now and the end of the season because attacking returns about the only sort of return we're getting for them. Højlund is just a no-go for me. I'm not sure why you'd pick Højlund over Jackson. At least Jackson is nailed, and at least Jackson is playing 80 plus minutes in pretty much every game. Højlund got hooked off again just after the 60-minute mark against Burnley. When he's their only fit striker, that is really concerning if you're looking to buy him in FPL. So I wouldn't go there. The only options in attack are both the midfielders. Fernandes and Garnacho are both really nice picks. Fernandes is still the better one. He's still on penalties. He's still on set pieces. With Salah not performing, there's so much budget to go around, so you don't need to save on Garnacho. Garnacho can be a nice differential, but again, a lot of the differentials we are looking at are in midfield. We've spoken about Noni Madueke at Chelsea already. There are a few at Manchester City if you want to go with Foden and De Bruyne as well. So fitting a Garnacho in is difficult. If you own him, he's a great pick and a decent run of fixtures between now and game week 38 as well. But Fernandes is the only one that I look at and think, I really think you should be owning him. The rest are good picks, but far from essential. Next up is at Newcastle. Let's start off in defence with a little bit of injury news. Apparently, Fabian Schär was taken off as a precaution for a hamstring injury. He said he couldn't fully sprint, so they took him off when they were beating Sheffield United. It does sound like a precaution, and the reports are that he potentially could be back for game week 36. That being said, if you are buying new now, I would just buy Dan Burn. If you own Schär, don't go making the sideways move unless Schär is confirmed out. But Dan Burn is a fine defender for the final 4 game weeks, given they have a decent run of fixtures. Trippier is expected back between now and the end of the season, which means you can't buy him yet, and you can't buy Livramento either. Nick Pope is also expected back, so if you own Dubravka, you just hold and hope, but you can't be buying a Newcastle goalkeeper new at the moment. Into midfield, Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes, both are getting attacking returns, but there's no reason to pick Barnes, who's just not getting starts consistently at the moment, when you have Anthony Gordon playing so well. His ownership is going to continue to rise. The only thing to mention is his home form is so much better than his away form, and 3 of the last 4 for him are away. So if you don't have him and you're looking at Gordon versus some of the others and you fancy taking a punt, Gordon is much better at home and you could go against him, given he only has 1 home fixture left now. Then up front, it is Isak and Wilson. Isak is almost in every team now. He's very essential. For me, he's the second best forward in FPL between now and the end of the season, between him and Erling Haaland. Callum Wilson could be a differential as your third forward if you're not going for a Gordon or a Dan Burn. I don't expect him to start more than 1 game between now and the end of the season, but even when he comes off the bench against tired legs, him and Barnes combining seems to be something we will see consistently over the final few weeks. So we did it a couple of times last season when we went with the Isaac Wilson double up. Isaac feels essential, but if you don't want to go Jackson as your third forward, you fancy something completely different. Wilson is not a bad punt, but you have to accept he'll probably start 1 game this season and the other appearances will be off the bench, but he can still do damage from there. Next up is Spurs. Now, with Liverpool away, a lot of you are probably not looking to buy new, particularly from a defensive point of view. Just to cover it off, Vicario is fine. He'll probably start every game, but with the fixtures gone, it's probably not worth buying now that the double they've just had is out the way. Defensively, I still prefer Porro over Romero, despite Romero being the one that did score this week. Porro is still the more attacking generally. Burnley at home, Sheffield United away is okay. If you don't have any defenders that you need to buy one of these is okay, but you're probably not doing it this week away at Liverpool. Into midfield, Son is fine. Most of you own him now. There's not much to report there. He's on penalties. We saw that, but he's still not actually playing very well at the moment. I probably wouldn't be buying Son this week if you don't own him. I probably wouldn't be buying any Spurs player this week if you don't own him. The only other ones you could consider is Johnson or Richarlison. I am expecting Richarlison to come back into the Spurs team on Thursday evening. Again, if you're even remotely considering buying a Spurs player this week, remember they play Chelsea on Thursday evening, and there are often a lot of heavy tackles causing injuries and a lot of yellow and red cards in those games as well. So wait until Friday if you are going to buy a Spurs player. I do think Richarlison will come back in. I do think they need him, and he could be an exciting differential between now and the end of the season, potentially as a different option to Son, who's not playing that well. But again, a lot of the differentials are in midfield, and it's difficult to squeeze them all in. And that is the 6 teams with a double between now and the end of the season. To talk about a few teams without a double, of course, Arsenal are the ones that we're looking at. Bournemouth at home, Manchester United away, Everton at home. Probably going to score as many points for their FPL assets as any player with a double over the next 3 weeks. Kai Havertz is the midfielder to go with, over going with Bukayo Saka for me. I do think that he'll be playing striker, and Gabriel Jesus will not start another game this season. In defence, it is Ben White over Gabriel, over Saliba. I know Timber is close to return, but unless they are in a position where they cannot win the league, I think Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Raya, the key picks across the attack as well, will start every single game. So if you have space in your midfield, Havertz is a great punt despite not having a double. Ben White in defence as well. Elsewhere in defence, Branthwaite could be one to look at. The only thing is Everton now are fully safe. They are in the Premier League for another season, so potentially the motivation for those Everton players could drop slightly. Moving up the pitch into midfield, Brian Mbeumo of Brentford could be one to look at. Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Newcastle at home. They don't have masses to play for, but he is looking really good, and they are potentially adjusting to life without Ivan Toney next year, as he is heavily linked to both Arsenal and to Chelsea as well, amongst a few other clubs. So Mbeumo could be putting his foot down to be that main man for Brentford next season. And then up front, actually two players, both in relegation candidates with a lot to play for. First of all is Morris of Luton, Everton at home, West Ham away, Fulham at home, and Chris Wood with Sheffield United away, Chelsea at home, Burnley away, both of which are going to get chances and both of which are going to have to score goals if their teams are going to stay in the Premier League, and both of which are very cheap. That third forward spot, loads of us have gone with Jackson. You could go with Wilson, or you could go with a forward that has so much on the line, is going to have to score goals, but doesn't have a double in either Morris or Chris Wood. And then just to rank all of that, just to put it in a little bit of perspective for you, just to rattle through this, Ortega is the best goalkeeper, or Ederson, depending on who we think is going to start the remaining games. If Ederson might be back for 37 or 38, you can't buy either. Then Petrovic is next. David Raya is third, despite not having a double. Then it is Onana. Then it is Vicario in at 5, just based off the double. Into defence, Gvardiol goes in at number 1. Manchester City look good. They probably will keep 2 clean sheets between now and the end of the season. Dan Burn just second above the Arsenal guys in Ben White and in Gabriel. And then it is Pedro Porro who does come in 5. No Chelsea defence, because I still don't think anyone is going to start every game between now and the end of the season. Into midfield, Cole Palmer is number 1. Purely based on budget, Phil Foden and Kevin De Bruyne are very close second and third. Foden is above De Bruyne, Fernandes next, and then it is Anthony Gordon. If you can't go De Bruyne, Fernandes and Gordon are also fantastic picks. Most of us won't have the ability to go double up on the Manchester City midfield, but if you have the luxury of it, it could be a great punt for the final few weeks. And then up front, Haaland first, Isak second, Jackson third. I still think he's the best of a bad bunch for third forwards. Watkins in at 4th, still chasing the golden boot, still fighting for 4th in the Premier League as well. And then the cheap option I'd go with is probably Chris Wood over Carlton Morris. Wood has not scored over the past couple, but he's been getting some chances as well. So mainly focused on doubles. If they have an extra fixture, that's like a 33% chance of getting a return potentially over the final few weeks. So still worth targeting them, but there are a few decent punts with players like Arsenal, Nottingham Forest potentially fighting over the final few weeks, and of course Ollie Watkins as well. Those are all the players. We have 3 weeks left, so just a few transfers to make to finally get those ranks and mini leagues that we need. Drop any questions you have in the comment section down below, and I'll get to as many of them I can over the next couple of days. 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.